He had everything a man could want: money, power, a luxurious life, but one failed deal threatened to unravel it all. What happens when the person everyone ignores becomes the key to success? James Whitmore, a billionaire real estate tycoon, leaned back in his chair, staring at the panoramic city skyline outside his towering office. Normally, this view brought him satisfaction, a reminder of everything he had achieved. Today, it only amplified his frustration. Another deal had fallen through. Another investor had backed out at the last minute. His name, once synonymous with success, now whispered with doubt in the circles he controlled. James, the meeting with the Crawford Group just got cancelled, his assistant said cautiously, holding a tablet displaying the rejection email. James slammed his hand against the polished mahogany desk. Cancelled, again. Is this possible? Everything was perfect. Perfect. His voice was sharp, laced with a rare edge of desperation. Maya, the black maid who had quietly worked in the Whitmore mansion for years, stood near the doorway, dusting a shelf. He'd seen this side of James before, the confident, untouchable billionaire. But today, his usual armor seemed fragile. He looked human, vulnerable. What if the problem isn't the deal itself? She said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. James turned sharply, surprised by the voice. Excuse me. Maya hesitated, unsure if she should continue. Maybe the pitch, maybe it's missing something. Something personal. Something that connects with people, not just numbers, charts, or projections. Something that makes them feel it, not just see it. James stared at her incredulously. Investors don't respond to emotions, they respond to returns, percentages, and guarantees. I don't have time for feelings, he said dismissively. But the words lingered. Over the next few hours, James reviewed his pitch again, trying to find the flaw. Graphs, statistics, charts, they were all flawless, but something still felt flat, impersonal. Meanwhile, Maya quietly went about her work, aware of the tension but unafraid to observe it. She had always been underestimated. A maid, a background figure in the Whitmore mansion, invisible to most. But she had a mind as sharp as any executive's and a creativity that James himself had never noticed. By late afternoon, James's frustration had reached its peak. He was pacing the office when he suddenly paused, staring at a detail he had overlooked. Investors were smart, they could see numbers on a spreadsheet. Could they see the people behind those numbers? Could they feel the lives changed, the communities impacted, the stories behind the profit? He thought back to Maya's words. Maybe the problem wasn't with the pitch, it was with the connection, the story that made the numbers meaningful. For the first time in weeks, a spark of clarity lit his mind. Maya, noticing his pause, dared to speak again. Sometimes, the numbers aren't what sell a deal. Sometimes it's the story behind the investment. James looked at her, really looked. For a moment, he saw not just the maid, but the intelligence, the insight, the creativity she had quietly carried for years. He realized that he had been blind to what was right in front of him. Someone who could see things differently, who could breathe life into what had seemed dead and lifeless on paper. The evening sun streamed through the glass walls of the office, casting a golden glow on the skyline. James finally spoke, his voice quieter now, thoughtful. Maybe I need help. Maybe I've been trying to do this alone. Maya nodded, surprised at the acknowledgement but encouraged. She didn't know what James had in mind, but she could feel the tension easing, the frustration shifting into possibility. And in that quiet moment, a silent understanding formed between them. James realized that sometimes brilliance isn't always where you expect it to be. Sometimes, the person you overlook, the one you see every day but never truly notice, can change everything. James had a choice now, to continue struggling alone or to embrace the unexpected. He didn't know what the next day would bring, but for the first time in weeks, he felt hope stir, a fragile, exhilarating hope that maybe, just maybe, he could turn the tide of failure into a triumph that no one, not even he, had seen. No one expected it. No one imagined she could do it. But one quiet maid, often overlooked, was about to change everything, and teach a billionaire a lesson he would never forget. The next morning, James Whitmore sat at his massive desk, the weight of yesterday's frustration still lingering in his chest. The city skyline gleamed under the early sun, but it no longer inspired awe. It was a reminder of deals lost, opportunities missed, and the pressure mounting on his shoulders. "Bring Maya to my office," he instructed his assistant, surprising her with the request. He hesitated, glancing toward the maid who had been quietly dusting the corners of the mansion. But James's expression brooked no argument. Maya entered, carrying a cloth and a small notebook she had begun filling with her observations over the past week. She felt a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. Why would James Whitmore, the man who rarely noticed her beyond her duties, summon her into his office? "Sit down," James said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. He studied her for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about stories, connection, and the power of showing people what they can feel, not just see." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to remember. I just thought, she began, but James cut her off. "No, you're right," he said firmly. "Numbers alone aren't enough. Investors see numbers every day. Don't see is the impact behind those numbers. what's missing. And I think you can help me show it to them. Maya blinked, stunned. Help him? What way? She had never given a presentation in her life. She had never been in a boardroom filled with millionaires ready to approve or reject a deal worth millions. And yet, James's trust in her was clear. All right, she said slowly, finding courage she didn't know she had. Tell me what you need. For hours, the two of them worked tirelessly. Maya pored over the details of the project, transforming James's cold, data-heavy pitch into a story that spoke to the heart. She imagined the families whose lives would improve, the communities that would benefit, and the people whose futures depended on this investment. She sketched visuals, created examples, and rehearsed how to deliver them convincingly. Detail mattered, from the way James introduced the project to how he explained the potential returns. But it was Maya's touch, the personal stories, the human angle, that turned the presentation from a standard pitch into something memorable. When the investors arrived, James delivered the financials flawlessly, projecting confidence as always. It was Maya's stories that captured their attention. They leaned forward, eyes bright with interest, nodding as they listened to the impact the project would have on real people. The room was silent, hanging on every word, every image, every heartfelt example. By the end of the meeting, the result was undeniable. Contracts were signed, deals finalized, and James felt a wave of relief so deep it almost knocked him back in his chair. But the most powerful moment was not the success itself, it was the realization of who had made it possible. He turned to Maya, who had quietly stepped back, watching the room with a mixture of pride and disbelief. You did this, he said, his voice a mixture of awe and gratitude. I never imagined. Maya smiled shyly, shrugging. I just told the story that needed to be heard, she said softly. In that moment, James understood something he had never fully grasped. Talent isn't always where you expect to find it. Brilliance doesn't always wear a suit or sit in a corner office. Sometimes, it's in the people you pass by every day, in the voices you overlook, in the quiet wisdom of someone who sees the world differently. From that day forward, Maya was no longer just the maid. She became a trusted advisor, a creative partner, and a reminder that humility and insight can achieve what money alone cannot. And James, he learned that success is more than profit, it's about people, perspective, and the courage to recognize talent wherever it hides. The city outside continued its hustle and bustle, unaware of the quiet revolution that had taken place in a corner office. Inside, a billionaire and a maid had changed not just the fate of a project, but the way they saw each other, and the world, forever.